It's not doing it. It's not doing it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we are going live with the very first match here of the TrackMania World Cup group stage, day 1. We have Aurel, Mime, Granadi, and Carl Jr. If you're not familiar with Carl Jr., well, he's most likely the favorite here, but today it is all about the Mimer guy. And we are starting actually on forest climbing. A very notorious identity map, very fast paced in the start as well. And this is the first time these players are driving against one another on these new maps. We have 4 new tracks in this map pack of 10 maps in total. And we have a Mime in first place right now, battling it out with Carl Jr. Gaps aren't as big as you'd expect here, but the identity can be very troubling. We have Granadi with a very different line here in the water. Carl Jr. taking a slightly different approach on the grass as well. Very low jump, but it is going to be Mime in first place, ladies and gentlemen. 1500s clear of the rest of the field as they are approaching the identity section right now. Mime still in first place. You have a very bumpy ride, and it is Mime who loses grip. It is also Granadi who is stumbling all over the place. And look who takes first place. Thanking the players for making mistakes. It is Carl Jr. getting the first place. It is all going to shambles right now already, as Mime had about 2/10 of an advantage going into the identity. But it is not going to be Mime getting the 10 points. We will be playing till 120 points. Cup mode with finalists, so whoever gets to 120 points will need to clear one more round in first place. Here we go. Name tags do work. It just they don't work when all cars are close by. Aurel got quite lucky actually in that last round. He found himself about a second behind and still managed to get second place after massive mistakes by the other players. Mime with a great start once again. And here's that different line by Granadi that is not working out as he hoped for. Also, Aurel very slow in the water section. It is going to be once again Mime versus Carl Jr. Mime again in the same situation that he was in last time. But the identity can be very tricky, as we have Carl going for the bounces. Carl goes for a lot of speed, keeps grip. Actually, it's a 1v1 close battle. It is Carl with a different line in the identity section. And it is going to be Carl taking it with that outside line, avoiding a couple trees on the right side where Mime decides to go for the most obvious route. Wow! And Granadi not making any points here, guys. That is harsh. Losing points by not finishing is very, very tough when you are playing cup mode. And this is the World Cup, so every single point counts. Mime, however, a little bit shaky approaching the identity, but he has very good pace throughout the rest of the map. Goes for an air brake here in the water bounce. Players cannot really do any trick in this water bounce because you have a no steer block right before. Mime is not doing the Granadi line. It is, however, Aurel again, not with a good start. Carl in third place. Mime again very far ahead already. But we've seen this 2 rounds prior to this as well. Oh, and Granadi gets too much airtime. Loses grip, hits the checkpoint. Right now, Carl Jr. again chasing Mime, and there he goes with a different approach. It's looking like the Carl Jr. line is much better, but it is going to be in the last uphill. Mime takes the 10 points with a 1 minute 79 seconds time. The Carl Jr. line is faster, but Mime with a little bit more risk going into the last couple bumps here on forest climbing takes the 10 points. Very well deserved by Mime here. Aurel really struggling. Similar story for Granadi, really. Not getting any points last 2 rounds ago. Now making a very, very harsh mistake at the reactor boost uphill. Hopefully he can claw back in this race, because it is hard to catch up when you are already falling far behind early on. Mime with a great start again. Aurel drifting a little bit too wide, loses a lot of momentum. Granadi with that outside line there. stays in second place, loses a little bit of time going through that water. Aurel with a no-slide strategy on the grass. Players will have water wheels, so it's harder to control your car. If Mime can keep this gap, he might be able to get another 10 points, but it's Carl Jr. chasing. Carl Jr. with a lot of risk. Carl Jr. loses it a little bit. Granati falls off. Carl still in second place, but this is looking like a 10-pointer for Mime as he is crossing the finish line with a nice time as well. A 1 minute, 40 seconds by Mime. Carl Jr. taking it a little bit more safe going into that identity, knowing very well that he was falling a little bit behind and there was no chance of him getting first place again. So great performance here by Mime. Getting 2 wins. He made quite a big blunder in the first round, but we are going into the next map, and it is another new track, ladies and gentlemen. We got to remember there's 10 maps in this map pack. Players have been able to pick their favorite maps, and by the looks of it, we are seeing 2 of the newest maps in this first match. So first map was forest climbing, chosen by Mime, if my sources are correct. And this one, red landing, is being picked by Granadi. So here we go then. This map takes place in America. Starting off with a bobsleigh. It is a very empty map. No sliding here with the icy tires. Very important. Now this landing in the water can be very troubling. Mime with a fantastic landing. You can see Carl is slip and sliding with water wheels in combination on plastic. It is very slippery, and Carl Jr. lost a lot of time. Now the thing is, this identity on red landing can be very, very damaging for these players. Slightly wrong angle, and you will most likely fly out and miss the important checkpoint that you guys will see in just a little bit. Double bobsleigh transition here. Mime on his way to win another 10 pointers here. Granadi drifting very tight, and now we go through the rings. Gotta get that early left landing here. Granadi gets it really good. Look at the momentum that he gets out of that landing. Mime with a mistake, and oh my god, Granadi getting a lot more red booster. Is he gonna take Aurel? Yes, just in front of the ending. But Carl Jr. stays in first place. And it is so important to get maximum booster in this identity. It is a red booster. It gives you a immense amount of speed. And it's hard to follow where everyone is landing. But you could see that Granadi in that first landing took a lot of boost from the left side. And he managed to propel himself to first place. And that's how you maximize this identity. Mime, very unfortunate stuff there. Missed the jump completely, or rather he missed the checkpoint. Had to go again for the jump. Mime once again with a good start. You might be wondering, why are people not sliding that uphill turn? Well, it's a forced acceleration block, or forced, or it's a no braking zone, that specific turn. So you cannot really drift. You are not allowed to use your brake button. Let's have a look then. People are requesting some Camera 7 action. I could try my best here. Let's just stay on board with Granadi here, who is chasing Mime. We saw this same pattern play out last time. Granadi jumping a little bit too far. No, he actually gets it perfect. Mime, on the other hand, slides off. Granadi with really good landing. You can see Carl Jr. landing a little bit more left on the booster, but it is going to be enough here for Carl Jr. to take 10 points. Granadi in second. Aurel gonna be finishing in third, and Mime again. He's driving a phenomenal round, but then the identity is the troubling zone for Mime. Still, Mime 35 points here. It is, however, Carl Jr. who is taking this match into his own hands with 52 points. Aurel and Granadi are fighting for that third and fourth position. Again, Mime with a good start. Carl Jr. had to go for a respawn and has dropped down behind. So this is a good opportunity for any of these players to gather those 10 points. that Carl Jr. has picked up the last 2 rounds. Mime, however, in the hot seat to get those 10 points. Has a 1500th of an advantage. Clips a little bit of the water. Interesting decision making by Mime. I'm not sure if that is on purpose or if the players really want to avoid all the water right there. Mime struggling a little bit with the exit of the bobsleigh. And here we go then. The identity. Once again, is Mime able to finally get it nice here? Granati landing very smooth. Gets the checkpoint. It is going to be Mime with an early release. He is getting so little booster. And I'm pretty sure Granati is going to win here with the speed slide. And yes, there it is. Granati getting the 10 points because he gets way more booster compared to Mime here just in front of the finish line. Mime is having a hard time closing out his advantage that he gains throughout the whole entire map here. 41 points for Mime. Going into round number 4 before we go into the next track. Mime again with a very good start. Finds himself every single time 1/10 ahead of the rest of the field. But then the identity is what is causing him all of his issues right now. Granati and Aurel chasing Mime here. We have a nice overview of the Polish player. Let's see if Mime is clipping his wheel in the water again. Because if he does, then it is definitely... Okay, so perhaps now Granati did it. Interesting stuff here. We know that Granati has a very good identity. We have seen it in the past 2 rounds. Lands super far on the left here. Mime goes a little bit farther to the right. I'm expecting Granati with more speed, but Granati with an unlucky bounce. And is this finally going to be Mime's 10-pointer? It is looking like it. The whole player field is in shambles as we have Granati going for a respawn. It is Carl Jr. stumbling. Aurel is stumbling. Everyone is stumbling. The timer is ticking down. 3, 2, 1... Oh, and it is only 2 people crossing the finish line here. And that means that Mime claws his way back to Carl Jr. Carl Jr. with 55 points had a very nice lead going into that final lap. But it is now Mime with only 4 points behind. Aurel with 36 and Granati with 32. And once again, guys, we have one of the newest maps. I wonder if this is going to be a pattern that we will see throughout every single match, every single round. So far, we haven't seen an old map yet. And what I mean with old map, we had 4 new maps being made after the open qualifiers were done. And right now, this is the 3rd new map that we are seeing. And it is Bobzak. I've heard from players that this is the most enjoyable map to play, but you could have guessed it besides the identity. Yep, the identity, looking at the name here, Bobzak is a bobsleigh identity. Mime finding himself a little bit behind here, but we're only halfway through the map, battling for that 2nd position. Very important to avoid the water here, else you will slide out. Mime with a different approach for this dirt turn to the right. Goes very inside. Early grip with the nose. And that propels him into 1st place. Has a 1500th of an advantage, but it is Carl Jr. who is chasing, going into the identity right now. Smooth landings by all of these players. Now the transition to the next one. It is Mime with a very smooth landing. Carl Jr. trying his best to catch up, but a 1:01.24 by Mime is a very good time. The online record here, you gotta remember, is a 1:90. So that is 3/10 off from the online known record. Granted, people probably have faster PBs. And we now have Mime and Carl Jr. both sitting with 61 points. Just a friendly reminder, we are playing till 120 points. So both of these players now reaching the halfway mark until the maximum amount of points has been reached. Not a good start for Mime. Needs to claw back about 3/10 here. in the last couple sectors of the map. Quite difficult to do so, but his identity from last round was really nice. And it all started here. Early grip. Aurel going for a very wide approach. Gotta have a look at that line in the next round. Mime also not getting the 5th gear here. That could cause him some troubles. Gets a smooth landing. Granadi not with a good transition there. Same with Aurel, but what a flip by Granadi. Is Mime able to catch up? No, he is not able to catch up. It is, however, going to be Mime who takes 1 position. Luckily, after Granadi made that blunder in the identity, the transition from bobsleigh to bobsleigh is really difficult to do so. And Carl now takes that first place back in his hands. Round number 3. Let's see if Mime is capable of getting a much better start here. The last 2 rounds were quite weak. Looks very good right now in first place, leading the pack to the second half of the track. Anything can still happen though. We have that ice turn, and we're gonna stay on Aurel's POV for a split second here. He was the only person who went extra wide here. As you can see, it goes very wide, landing much higher on the ice, perhaps getting more speed in the exit. It's not really paying off for him. Let's go a little bit closer to the front here. Carl Jr. is trying his best to catch up. Mime will not have a good transition here as he is bumping and jumping. It is going to be Mime losing all of his speed. Goes for a 360 no-scope. Can he collect the boosters? Yes, he can, but that is very unfortunate stuff there. Reaching the identity in first place and then ending after the finish line in last. Carl now extending his lead in this matchup. 81 points. 1 last round to go on Bobzak. Mime definitely has the pace. It is just that the identity of this map is causing a lot of these players troubles. Great start again. Very important to not drop your gear on that dirt turn. If you do so, you will lose about 2 or 3 tenths. Oh, Carl Jr. very wide, but gets the low jump. Very, very nice line here by Carl Jr. Takes over that first place from Mime. Is this going to be another win for Carl Jr., or is Mime able to get a very good end? It is looking like Mime is overtaking that first place. Carl Jr. with a safer approach here. Mime in the transition gets a little bit of a bump, and he clips his tire once again. Same problem, and it is going to be not getting last. Oh, he is gonna get last again. Mime has the pace, but the lines in this bobsleigh identity are causing him to lose that first place every single time. Here we go though. Map 2 done, map 3 done. And another new track, ladies and gentlemen. Interesting. I did not expect this. I'm gonna be honest. I did not expect all the new tracks to be chosen right here. I did not expect that. I thought people were going for the older maps more frequent. So, this map is a complete remake of a map called ESWC Gamefire, which was a map used in Electronic Sports World Cup in 2012. I happened to play that event, and I happened to win the World Cup that year on this map. And from great sources, I've heard that this map is in because of my competitive stop, which is a cool thing to receive. So Carl should know this map by heart in that case, because Carl Jr. played in 2012 as well against me in the grand finals. So he should have a little bit of an advantage on this map. However, back then it was all tarmac and tech, and right now it's a complete mix. Grass, reactors, ice, everything is in here. And the ending is full ice right now with Carl Jr. in first place, going for the ice slide. Mime having a very nice entry here, taking over first place, going through the triple pillar section. It is Carl Jr. with an attack, and it is going to be Carl Jr. sniping Mime's 10 points away again. They are fighting against one another, but man, oh man, you need to have your gamer pants on if you want to beat Carl Jr. in a match, ladies and gentlemen. Interesting to see. Everyone is no sliding the start. Most likely are using some action key. Oh, huge mistake by Granati. Had to go for a respawn, guys. And Granati needs to make sure that he keeps up his pace. We see Carl Jr. colliding with the wall. Can Mime finally get his 10 points? It would be very lovely if he could get so, or if he could do so in this case, up against RL. But RL is only 0.2 behind Mime. And we have seen the end. It is full ice. And when you have a full ice part, it can cause havoc. So, here we go then. Staying on the POV from RL so we can see Mime in action. They slow down a lot before going into this ice slide. Mime looking to get first there. One last turn remaining, and that is looking fabulous for Mime. Finally gets his 10 points. RL in second. Carl Jr. will get third after that mistake he did early on. And Granati also managing to finish collecting his points. Carl Jr. only 15 points away from reaching finalist status. He could do it on this map. And then he goes into that finalist mode where he can close out this particular match. Mime with a bad start. It seems like the same thing that happened to Granati in last round is now happening to Mime. And that is not good for his point gap, because the other players are able to catch up. However, it is Carl Jr. in first place, looking to get his 10 points. RL and Granati are fighting though. They're now closing in on the leader spot. We only have that ice slide remaining. We saw that early release strategy by RL. It seems like Carl Jr. goes into the ice a little bit faster and then decides to release. Oh, RL touching. Granati going for a very tight approach here. Can he stay ahead of RL? Yes, he can. And it is Carl Jr. getting 10 points. Granati second place. RL in third. And Mime manages to get to the finish line. If Carl Jr. gets top 2 in this round, he will be finalist. And he will be finalist for a long time, actually. Which is definitely the situation that you want to put yourself in as a player when you are driving a mode such as Cup mode. Getting as many quote-unquote free finalist rounds is nice to have. Carl Jr. battling with Mime. Mime could go up to triple digits if he gets the 10 points here as well. Very nice fight there. Granati already 3 seconds behind. Mime with a very tight approach there in that grass section compared to what Carl Jr. is doing. And now Mime is going for the attack here. He wants to get those 10 points. Can he get a good ice slide though? Very close to the corners. It's all going to decide it in this ending here. Carl Jr., however, is trying to snipe as well. Wow, that is the closest round we have seen so far. And what did I tell you guys? If Carl Jr. gets top 2, he will get finalist mode, because he has reached the 120 point mark. So Carl Jr. looking to win his first match here. But we are going to the 5th map, which is randomly decided. And it is going to be hard. This is one of the older maps. So we played all the new tracks, and now we see an old map coming in to the map pack. Carl Jr. now has the F, which stands for finalist. Not to be mistaken with F to pay respects or any other word. Mime with 94 points, Aurel 79, Granadi 64. It is looking good for Mime as well here, as about 20-point gap towards the third place. But Carl Jr. is looking to close out this match as soon as he can. He doesn't want the other players to catch up, because when you reach finalist mode, you are not being awarded more points. You are just there with your finalist status. Into the first sector of hard. All players within 1500s of one another. Carl Jr. leading the pack though. Looking to close it out in his very first finalist attempt here. Ooh, wow. Mime so close to the pillars, also gets a little bit too much airtime and has a very bad entry into this water. It is looking like Carl Jr. is just gonna take the win here. No, it is Carl Jr. and Mime both colliding with the identity of this map. It is a RPG trial type ending here, and Granadi takes maximum profits off of this. Mime actually with the DNF. He has to unbind the dings. Mime with the DNF. Not good here. Carl Jr. was looking very strong all the way up until that ending. And then he made some blunders. Let's have a look in this next round. It is Aurel who caught up 6 whole points right now to Mime. And if this trend keeps going like this, we will see Carl Jr. close out the match, and then multiple finalists will happen. Aurel falling far behind, but even if you fall far behind, we saw it last round. People can make mistakes in the ending. Important to get low airtime here, and there we go. One player already dropped, and that name is Carl Jr. Mime again with a very shaky water part here. Granadi, however, looking very strong. Mime finally making the identity. Goes for a small drift to keep traction. It is looking like Granadi will take it here, and that is a 10-pointer for Granadi. Mime getting second place will now also have triple digits. Carl Jr. practicing the identity. Very important to get into the flow of things. But you can see now, Mime, Aurel, and Granadi are collecting points, whereas Carl Jr. isn't. And this is the power of cup modes, where others are now able to catch up towards that first guy. It could happen that Carl Jr. just loses this match completely, and the others are closing out their finalist rounds. Into round number 3 we go. Good pace by every single one. Aurel is only 1 car length behind. Gets a nice line here. Mime had to let go of his acceleration just a little bit to make the turn here, and falls behind in 4th position. We have seen Mime with some shaky water lines here. Can he fix that right now? It is looking like this attempt, he gets it very nicely, but it is Carl Jr. steamrolling in first place. 2/10 of an advantage. All Carl Jr. needs to do is get the ending correct. It is looking like he will do so. 1 jump remaining, and Carl Jr. will close out and wins match number 1 in the World Cup group stage right now. Arguably deserved victory here. Was the first guy to get finalist status, drove the fastest times, made the least mistakes. So Carl Jr. getting first here is well deserved. And now we have an interesting battle occurring here, guys. 104 points for Mime, 92 points for Aurel, and 90 points for Granadi. The point gap is only 14 points between all these 3 guys. Anything can still happen. My guess would be a multiple finalist situation occurring between these 3 players. Granati with a very strong start right now. Can he make this jump though? That is a rough angle. Will lose quite some time here as both Mime and Aurel are catching up, going onto the dirt. Now into this water section. Mime did get it quite shaky and once again loses out on a lot of momentum. I'm not sure what he is doing wrong here. Maybe just letting go of the acceleration a little bit too early here. Aurel going for the 10-pointer, but it is Granati who's going for an attack. No, it is Mime with an early low landing. Can he snipe it? No, but what a round right there, ladies and gentlemen. Granati staying ahead. And what a performance by Granati on hard. Winning 3 rounds so far. And look at that. Now Granati in 3rd place ahead of Aurel. And now we have played 5 maps, guys. We go back to the first map, which was forest climbing. And I recall Mime failing 2 rounds, but I also recall Mime winning 2 rounds. So, Mime is 10 points away. 10 points away from reaching finalist status. Granati, 20 points away from finalist status. And Aurel, 24 points away from finalist status. Here we go then, the first round. We do remember Mime had great pace throughout the entirety of this map, but the identity is very troubling. We also have a Granati with a different line in the next reactor part coming up after the magnet here. So let's see if Granati is able to catch up just a little bit. But look at the gap that Mime already has created here. And there is Granati with a different approach here. Gets a little bit closer, but it's not a whole lot. The leader of the race now, it is going to be Mime. And it is all in Mime's hands, guys. The identity, the forest climb. Up the bouncy reactor grass part. Yes, this is grass with a red color. It is looking very good for Mime, and this will put him into finalist mode. 1 minute 66 seconds by the Mimer gang. 66 hundredths, sorry, my math is all over the place today. Finalist mode has been enabled. This is now all out for Mime. Can he do it? Falls behind just a little bit, but his pace in Sector 2 of this map is far above the other players. And he is starting his train right here. Up this magnet part, this is where he shines the most, as you can see. Extends his lead just a little bit, but Granati with a very massive inside line there will take over that first place. Now with the smooth steering from Granati's wheel is able to extend his lead just a little bit. Mime with a very low transition that will propel him into first place, but the identity is so risky and tricky. Can Mime close it out here as we are going up the bouncing hills here? It is going to be Mime clipping, Mime falling off, and it is Aurel taking first place over. He does really want these 10 points. Granati still in second place. Oh boy, oh boy. Aurel with 10, Granati with 6. And we could have a double finalist situation brewing here. Whoever gets first here, besides Mime, will be put in finalist mode as well. Close pack before the magnet part. Mime, however... Oh, Mime with a little bit of airtime that will lose him a lot of speed, and he hits the checkpoint. And this could be nerfs, ladies and gentlemen. This could be nerfs from Mime. And we will have a double finalist mode happening. Unless the inevitable is happening in the identity. Granati in first place, Mime in second, Aurel in second. Great identity for Aurel. And Granati looking to get 10 points. No, it is going to be 6 points for Granati. And here we go. This is it. Could it be the same pattern that we saw the first time on forest climbing, where Mime failed the first 2 rounds and then he won the next 2? Double finalist situation. Mime and Aurel. Whoever gets first place here gets second place. But we cannot count out Granati, who has been driving very well in these last couple rounds. Mime not with a good angle. Avoids jumping right now. Stays in the mix. Granati with that different approach with the grass here. Good speed from Mime here onto the grass. Granati still in first place. Granati wants to deny this round, and then we will go triple finalists, ladies and gentlemen. Granati with 2/10 of an advantage. It is all out for these players. They have to full send the identity if they want to have a say in this, but Granati gets it very well. It is Mime who is trying his hardest to get the good bounces, but it is looking like we will go into triple finalist situation, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my god. Oh no. And I think this is something that we will see throughout the entire World Cup. My heart is racing, just like these guys are racing on the track. Triple finalists, and we are going to red landing. We are going to red landing. And I will say, Granati had the best endings, if we exclude Carl Jr. We have seen crazy mistakes happen in this identity. Triple finalist situation, and it is going to be all out. Here we go. Whoever gets first closes out his match and gets second position, right behind Carl Jr. Mime with a fantastic start, jumping in the water. This is an important landing. Gets it very nicely. Both Granati and Aurel still behind though. 1500s. Mime almost flying out. Onto the sausage drift we go. We have 2 bobsleighs and the identity remaining. Mime still keeping up his pace quite nicely here. Granati goes in the water and he respawns. It was a big blunder for Granati to go in the water. And this is a huge opportunity for Mime now to close out his match. 5/10 ahead with only the identity remaining. Aurel gets a lot of booster, but he gets the bad landing. And this is it for Mime here. And he makes it. Mime gets second place right behind Carl Jr. Zack. 10 points. Closes out the match in third here. I'm pretty sure we're playing for third and fourth as well. Yep, we are. Here we go then. Aurel versus Granati. Every single position matters, guys. For first place, you get 4 points. For second place, you get 3 points. For third place, you get 2 points. And last place gives you 1 point. Who is going to get third in this match? Granati with that huge mistake last round. And now it's a battle. They are closing in on that identity. Is Aurel gonna have a say in this one? Goes very wide here. Granati with a beautiful line. Extends his lead. 4/10 now. It is all in the identity. There we go. Nice slide around the corner. Early release. Flat landing. This is important. Both of them getting the flat landing. It is Aurel who almost missed the checkpoint. And it is looking like Granadi is gonna get the 3rd place. Aurel gets 4th place, and that is the first match done. GG's. Carl Jr. looking very, very strong. Per usual. Mime, little bit shaky. Still getting 2nd place. Granadi 3rd. And we have Aurel in 4th. Very well done by everyone.